All right, all right. Good morning. Good morning. How's everyone doing? Hope you guys are well. Hope you had a good weekend. It's a bit of a chilly morning, but we're really glad that you could join us from wherever it is that you're joining us from. Karibuni sana. Good to see lots of people streaming in. Of course, lots of familiar names that we've seen here before. Good to see you here. And also guys that we've not seen here before. So welcome to the Afriforex Daily Analysis. For the sake of guys who are new, to me, to us, John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Afriforex is a trading unit, so it's not a one-man show. So we do have Mitch. He is working in the back office. In case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them, both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. But we always do most prefer that you do end up asking them in the Q&A section so that I can also end up having a look at them towards the tail end of the webinar. But remember, you don't also need to ask your questions at the very end of the webinar. You still can ask, even as the webinar does end up progressing on, which will definitely give you a favorable response. So I think we can jump straight into it. We'll start off by looking at what we did have on the charts on Friday. Do a recap. Then after that, we'll end up looking at what the charts do look like today. So on Friday, the 21st of June, you can see right there what we're watching out for. Buying opportunities on the Canadian dollar, the New Zealand dollar, the Australian dollar, and the Great British Pound. Mixing and matching that up with everything else on the sell side. Moving into today, this is what the watch list is going to be looking like. So for the sake of guys who are here early, you can definitely take a screenshot of that, but we'll definitely be looking at it in a bit. You can see that a couple of changes, especially to do with the US dollar. There was a lot of strength that did come in during the US session. So we factored that in. So feel free to take a screenshot of that. And also you can see gold and silver have also shifted sides. So before we come back to that and look at what the watch list is going to be looking like also on the charts, let's first have a brief recap of what happened on Friday. So you can see the three areas right there that I had pointed out. This is on the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. We're watching out to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. Can see the three regions: aggressive right at the top, conservative down here, semi-aggressive, conservative within this region. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. We're expecting to see whether we could have gotten a pullback, maybe somewhere within this area, and possibly something that we could have read that could have told us to look for selling opportunities at that point in time. But you can see that the buyers came up quite aggressively. Price came back in within this region. And unfortunately, also within this area, we couldn't quite see, a slowdown of the buyers. You can see how aggressively they came up within this region during the London session. During the US session, you can see that they were not really slowing down within this area, and the market did break to the upside. Maybe we would have expected some sort of a probe within this area, and maybe that could have possibly told us to possibly go for the sells. But you can see that the market came all the way till the top right there. And you can see that at around 4:30 or thereabout, also part of the times that we do keep on discussing. Remember, we always talk about 10, which is the London market open. We talk about 3, which is the US session open, and 4:30. Those are times that you could definitely find the market possibly making a move, off these areas. But consider the market within this area at 3, unfortunately, there was nothing. 4:30, a bit of a tricky move. Catching such type of trades can be a bit tricky. You can see how fast the market just tapped within that area, came down, came back up again. But of course, definitely some sort of a fight that was going on between the Canadian dollar and the US dollar. So moving into today, not really something that we'll be focusing on. Could find that the market could be quite choppy within this region. And sometimes, jumping in such kind of trades, it's not really something that you want. You want something that's going to be taking a clear direction so that it's much easier for you also. Both emotionally, because remember, you don't get into some sort of trades that are going to become some emotional roller coaster. So in terms of your emotions, and also something that is, just going to give you some nice profits in an easy manner. So the next one is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar, also a currency pair that we had, but unfortunately we don't have today. So for this one, we're watching out to see whether we could have gotten some buys. You can clearly see the 3 regions right there that I pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. I did point out that we wanted to see the market break and hold above this region. It did seem like it did do so, but you can see, let's say, even if you did attempt some buys here, of course, we'd have expected price to come back in all the way till the region at the top there. But it seems that there was a region of sellers somewhere within this area who just couldn't let the buyers go. You can see that they did end up turning the market around within this region right here. And of course, when price came back in within this region right here, this was much later on. This was during the New York Stock Exchange session. You can see that price came back in, tapped that area, but also not really the clearest of trading opportunities. Definitely also something to do with the US trend that did come in, because from around 3 all the way, I think, till about 5:30 or thereabout, there are quite a number of US news events that came out. You can see that strength coming in within this particular region right here. So unfortunately, not really something that we'll be focusing on. So the next one that we do have for review is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, almost something similar to the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. For this one, we're watching out for buys. Can't clearly see the 3 regions that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region. We did want to see the pullback coming in. For the guys who are here on Friday, remember I did point out that maybe you could have looked for aggressive buys within this region. But unfortunately, if you had your stops within here, you could have easily been stopped out. And you can see that the market did literally spike within this area, attempted to go to the upside. But unfortunately, once those news events came in, and you can see that the market was within some sort of a seller's region at exactly 3, you can see that the strength of the US dollar did really end up coming in, and the market did push itself to the downside quite aggressively. So unfortunately for us, for today, not really a currency pair that we will be watching out for. Ideally, making sure that we're just not trying to fight, with the strength on the US dollar. Maybe unless if things do end up changing, possibly something that we could try and see whether we could get some opportunities tomorrow. So last but not least for review, we do have the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, we're watching out to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can clearly see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out. Remember, I did point out that this was the last area where we could have possibly looked to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. I also did give caution on this one. Remember, I pointed out the Great British Pound, especially on this one, was showing a lot of weakness, and we were generally trying to see whether we could pick the buys, but the market was generally coming to the downside quite strongly. And I did point out that you could find that the market could literally break to the downside of this region. We're expecting some sort of a probe within here. But remember that we wanted to see the market hold above this area to the upside. Unfortunately, it didn't do that. And of course, you can't see that once it broke to the downside and held below. Unfortunately, at that point in time, there was definitely no trade for us. So moving into today, unfortunately, not a currency pair that we will be watching out for. But maybe tomorrow things do end up changing. Maybe it could be back. We don't really want to get into some choppy movement within here. But we also could find that the market could continue moving to the downside. I mean, you can see that the general direction of the market seems to be to the downside. And we generally don't want to be fighting with that. And also in terms of jumping in on the sells, if it's not something that, we definitely need a reason. Let me put it that way, for us to take our trades. If we don't have a good reason as to why we should be jumping in on the sells, then we're definitely not going to be taking them. So that's pretty much for the review of all the currency pairs that we did have on Friday. So for guys who are just checking in, this is what our watch list is going to be looking like for today. So feel free to take a screenshot of this. But at least the good thing about it is nowadays you guys have the recordings. You can definitely go ahead and watch these things. And I think that's the reason why we're not really getting a lot of questions in terms of kindly repeat this and that, which is okay. But we really hope that we're giving you guys as much value as possible. For the guys who are watching us from YouTube, Facebook, X, Telegram, Instagram, also make sure that you do like or follow, and of course remember to share so that this information can get to as many people as possible out there. So if you've taken a screenshot of this, I think we can get started. We can jump straight into it. So we're going to mix and match up the things that are on the sell side, especially the currency pairs. So the yen, the euro, and the Swiss franc against the currency pairs on the buy side. So we'll start off with the yen pairs. So the first one off the line is the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. Now, this is also a currency pair that we did have on Friday. We're watching out to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. You can see the 3 regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts at around 9:10, price was somewhere within this area. And I did point out that this was not a good area for you to look for your buying opportunities. You clearly can't see why. The sellers did react off that area quite aggressively during the London session open. Price came back in within this region right here. You can see that the market did really struggle to pick to the upside during the London session, but you can see that during the US session, the market did pick up to the upside. And if you look at the times, that's exactly 4:30. That's during the New York Stock Exchange open. So you can see that the price pushed to the upside quite aggressively. Wasn't much of a pullback. Of course, maybe we could have expected price to come back in within here, but you can see that the price did continue to move to the upside. But at least today, during the Asian session, and hopefully during the London session, you can see that the market has slowed down within here. So let's see if we could possibly get the market coming back in, maybe somewhere within this area right here. Don't look for buying opportunities right now. Wait for the pullback. And I hope that what happened on Friday does end up serving as a lesson. You know, patience is key when it comes to trading. Unfortunately, many people get stopped out because they can't just end up, you know, not really, you know, holding their hands back from not really pulling the trigger. So if you just end up waiting, and the key thing that we keep on talking about, buy with buyers, sell with sellers. If you end up doing that, even if your timing is not really that great in terms of your trading, you know, but ideally you will give yourself a fighting chance. So right now, looking for the buying opportunities, you can see that the sellers have reacted off here before. So let's wait and either see if we can get the market breaking above this region to the upside. If that does happen, then we could definitely look for buying opportunities. If not, then wait and see if you could get the pullback coming in back within this area, especially right now, considering the fact that we're just coming into the London session. There's a possibility you could find that the sellers could react off this area. They could push the market back down, maybe back within that area or somewhere within this region. But remember the red SNR, that's going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we could get our buys. If the market breaks and holds beneath that region, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us on the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So the next one is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. Now for this one, also a currency pair we had on Friday, we were watching out to see whether we could get some buying opportunities, more or less some sort of a similar situation with what happened on the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. Can see that during the Frankfurt open at around 9 and also the London market open, price was somewhere within there. The price did push itself back in within this region right here. And off that area, you can see that the market went to the upside. If you timed your buys somewhere within this region, then that would have been good. And also you can see that when the market broke to the upside of this region to the upside on the pullback, at least if you did jump in on some buys there, you can see that was at exactly 4:30. You can see that the price did push itself up to the upside quite well. So for this one for today, we are still going to be looking to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So do watch out for these three regions right here. And also remember, since price is more or less near some sort of a seller's region, you don't really want to be looking for your buying opportunities somewhere within there. Wait and see if you could get price coming back in either within that region there or maybe somewhere within this area. This is going to be the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities or aggressive buying opportunities rather. So do watch out for that. But also if we do get a breach to the upside, maybe a repeat of what happened within this area right here. Let the big boys first break through this region. Wait for the confirmation, just like you can see within this region, that the market is actually holding above that area. When the market pulls back in within this region, then at least you could potentially look for your buying opportunities at that point in time. So make sure that you do watch out for that. Also remember that there's some good correlation that happens, especially with the yen pairs. Correlation for the guys who are new means that a group of pairs do move together. And that's the reason why you're seeing the Canadian dollar and the Japanese yen and the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen more or less do end up looking similar. They did a similar thing at that point in time. And also when they did move to the upside, if you look at the times at around 4:30 for both of them, you'll find that they did move at more or less the same time. So correlation is basically the charts moving together. And you will find that the yen pairs normally do have some very good correlation most of the time. So moving on into the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. And you can see something similar to what we've seen with the others. So price pushed itself to the downside, came back in, although this one did pull back in a bit deeper. The other two that we've looked at did come in till somewhere within this region right here. But you can see that during the London market open, price came to the downside. During the US session at around 4:30, that's when the market did start to move to the upside. So something similar. So just make sure that if you see something on one of the yen pairs just have a look at the rest of the yen pairs. You could find that it could be some good correlation, and just by using correlation, you could get a handful of pips, just by jumping in on a couple of currency pairs. But just make sure that you do maintain your risk. Nonetheless, don't become trigger happy and just go heavy on all of them. Because remember that if the market works against you and you're exposed to too much risk, then it's also not a very good thing. Because when it comes to trading, it's a matter of managing your risk. And unfortunately, many people can't manage their risk. And that's the reason why things always go south. So for this one, take note of those 3 areas right there. But it's more or less a similar situation with the others that we've discussed. Right now, we're more or less within some sort of seller's region. Don't look for the buys now. Wait and see if you could get the pullback. Hopefully, let's see if we can get some buys within here, or maybe somewhere within this region right here. But if the market breaks beneath this region to the downside and holds below it, then unfortunately, at that point in time, there will be no trade for us on the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So moving on into the next one. This is the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So we also did have this one on Friday. And more or less similar situation with the rest of the yen pairs. So you can see correlation was also in play on this one. At 9:10, price came to the downside, bounced off this region right here. And you can see that during the US session, just like we've seen with the rest of the yen pairs, that's when the market did actually go to the upside. This one actually went up quite far. If you did end up getting this one, then that was really good. Of course, of all the yen pairs, this one is the one that has really moved the most. This one and the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen, possibly also something to do with the CAD and also the Great British Pound in terms of helping. This one's moved to the upside. The Australian dollar and the New Zealand dollar, a bit of a fight, and that's why you can see that they didn't quite move as far as this one. But for this one, for today, these are the 3 areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those 3 regions right there. So right now, similar situation with the rest. We're at the seller's region. Don't look for buys now. Wait and see what happens during the London session. Could find price coming back in within that region or somewhere within this area right here. And maybe you could find that during the US session, that's when maybe the market could be primed in terms of looking for the buying opportunities. Hopefully, if the market does come in deeper, maybe starts to bring in some sellers into the market. Remember that you're always doing business with the opposite party. At least if some sellers can fast come in, if the market especially comes in, maybe even breaks this region to the downside, brings in some sellers, because most guys are actually breakout traders. That could be good in terms of, if you look for your buying opportunities here, that might be what might be needed to break this region to the upside. So just make sure that you watch out for that, but make sure that you do keep your eye on the ball. Remember the red SNR at the bottom in case the price breaks that region to the downside and holds below it and can't go above it. Then unfortunately at that point in time, that currency pair will be falling off our watch list and we'll have to look for opportunities elsewhere. So last but not least, for the yen pairs, we do have the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. So we will be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities, but you can see that there's also some good correlation on this one, just like the rest of the yens. Price has gone up to the upside. This was during the US session on Friday. Right now, it's more or less holding within a particular region, just like we've seen with the rest of the yens. Don't look for your buying opportunities too close within that region. Let's see if we can get the price at least coming back in within this area right here. This is a good area to look for your buys. If not, and let's say this price is not good enough for the buyers to come in and push the market to the upside, then we could wait and see if we could get the pullback coming in a bit deeper, maybe till somewhere within this region right here. So make sure that you also do watch out for that. But like I pointed out, remember some good correlation is happening amongst the yen pairs. If you see something on one, just have a look at the others. You could end up getting some good moves. And also, even if, let's say, you get one, but you've had a look at the others, that should give you more confidence, especially if you do get the buy and you're seeing that the rest of the yen pairs are also moving. Even if you don't end up jumping in on them, it should give you some comfort just to know that the big boys are there. Because when the big boys come in, they don't just jump in on one. Like they wouldn't take CAD and leave out NZDN, AUDN, or GBP, and they'll possibly end up taking all the yens that they can find. And so if you end up seeing that across the board, that should give you some sort of comfort and some sort of confidence that your trade will potentially end up working out. So that's pretty much it for the yen pairs. So right now we're going to move on to the euro pairs. mix and match them up with everything on the buy side, just like we've done with the yen pair. So we'll start off with the euro against the Canadian dollar. So this is a currency pair that we also did have on Friday. We're watching out to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region at around 910. We're possibly expecting to get the price coming back in within this area right here. But you can see that the market did literally quite turn off this area quite aggressively, move to the downside, came back in for some sort of a pullback, some sort of a retest within there. But you can see that the sellers did attempt to go lower than this, but they just couldn't. It's like they ran out of steam somewhere within this region right here. You can see that the market did probe to the upside, to the downside, but it seems like it's a bit choppy within this region right here. But moving into today, we have adjusted the regions. We can see that the sellers did come in quite aggressively, somewhere off this area right here. So we're waiting to see what happens. Hopefully the buyers can come in just like they are within here. Let's see if they can slow down within this area. Because of course, if they don't end up slowing down, then we have a problem on our hands in terms of looking at for the selling opportunities. So we do need them to slow down somewhere within this region right here. So even if they're coming in aggressive, it's okay. Let them do their thing. Let's see if they do end up attempting to break this area to the upside. Generally, you can see that there are sellers within this region right here. And maybe that might end up inciting, the sellers to really push the market to the downside aggressively. That happens and the market holds. Possibly we get some sort of a pullback coming in within this region, then we could try and see whether we could get ourselves to potentially end up coming down, maybe try to break free of this region to the downside. If we get a probe somewhere within this area right here, there's a possibility you could get the market coming to the downside because that liquidity is what the market needs to potentially end up breaking this region to the downside. So let's wait and see if we could potentially end up getting that. But remember the region at the top, that's the last area where we will be trying to see whether we can get our last selling opportunity somewhere at the top right there. If the market breaks above that, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So the next one is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So this is also a currency pair that we did have on Friday. We were trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. More or less some sort of a similar situation with what happened with the euro against the Canadian dollar. So you can see that at exactly 9, the price did start to move on this one. Definitely something to do with the euros. We're possibly expecting price to either come back in within here, or maybe if the market broke to the downside, maybe we would have expected some sort of a pushback back within this region, some sort of a choppy move coming back in for us to attempt the sells. But you can see that the buyers stepped back in within this region quite aggressively. And you can see that the sellers didn't really have much to say about it. They really struggled. And after that, you can see that the market did actually attack this area again. And today, moving into the Asian session, the market has literally broken above this region to the upside. So let's see if the sellers within this region can contain the buyers. There's a possibility you could find that the market could either react off this area to the downside, because you can see that there are a bunch of sellers, somewhere within this region right here. If that happens and the market is pushed back to the downside and we get a hold within here, then you could potentially end up looking for your selling opportunities, somewhere within that area right there. But you'll have to be patient because you're also not quite sure whether the market could come up all the way to the region at the top right there. So it's always a matter of waiting to see. And when it comes to trading, you trade what you see, not what you think. So if right now you're seeing that the buyers are coming up, even if we're more or less within some sellers region within there, based on the aggression that they are showing, and you can visually see it on the charts because you can see that the buyers are pushing up quite aggressively. It's better for you to actually wait. So trade what you can actually see. When you see them slowing down within this region right here, and you can visually see that the sellers are now becoming stronger than the buyers, at that point in time, if you do end up taking a trade, the chances and the probability of your trades working out do actually end up going up quite significantly. So let's see what happens on this one. If we don't get the reaction there, then we will be waiting for that region at the top right there. So just make sure that you're watching out for that. Also remember to watch out for the times. I know we sound like a broken record repeating those times, but it is what it is. So watch out for 10, 3, and 4:30. You could potentially find some good opportunities at that point in time. And also remember to manage your risk. As the trades do work out in your favor, make sure that you also do secure profits, because sometimes people do end up getting happy, especially when you're seeing profits running you forget that you also need to manage. And that's the reason why some people do end up getting really disappointed, because you had the money, it was in your hands, you actually did end up taking some profits, and unfortunately they do end up getting snatched away. So just make sure that you also do manage your trades. Once the market starts to move in your favor, make sure that you do bring up your stop losses. If you're looking for buys, if you're looking for sells, make sure that you do take them down so that you at least end up securing and managing your risk. So moving on into the next one, this is the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair that we did have on Friday, we're watching out to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can see the three regions right here that I had pointed out, which are more or less the same areas that we're going to be watching out for today. So on Friday at around 9, around this time on Friday, price was somewhere within here. We're possibly expecting price to come back in within here for us to look for ourselves. Unfortunately, price didn't get all the way till within there. In similar fashion with what we've seen with the rest of the euro pairs, you can see that at around 9 or 10 or thereabout, price did move to the downside. We're possibly expecting to see the market possibly come back in within here. Maybe give us some sort of a hold for us to look for the sells. But it seems like the market ran away to the downside, maybe tapped some sort of a serious SNR somewhere within this region, right? And you can see how aggressively the buyers came up. So unfortunately for us on Friday, the opportunities were not very clear. Let's see what happens. You can see that the buyers have started to slow down within here, but we're also not yet seeing the sellers or the big sellers really coming in quite yet. But let's see what happens. Maybe you could find the market needs to potentially end up tapping into this area, maybe do some sort of a probe within there. Then after that, we could potentially find that the market could give us a good selling opportunity. So let's be a bit patient, but also remember, if the market breaks and holds above here, that point in time, just be on standby. Wait and see if you can get the market coming back into the downside of this region. If that does happen, then you could potentially try and see whether you could get sales. You could manage your trades within here. You could target all the way down here. The market gets all the way down till there, then well and good. If it breaks to the downside, it's okay. Just make sure that you do manage your trades. For the guys who are really good at trading, you could get a trade here. You could manage your first trade somewhere within this region right here. And if the market breaks to the downside, you could potentially try and see whether you could jump in on another trade, maybe somewhere within this region. But of course, making sure that the trade that you've taken earlier is also well managed. Otherwise, if you don't do that, then you're exposing yourself to too much unnecessary risk. And that's not the way trading is supposed to work. So moving on into the next euro pair. This is the euro against the Great British Pound. So this is also a currency pair that we did have on Friday. So you can see the three regions that we did have there, more or less the same areas that we're going to be watching out for today. Because in as much as the market has moved, it's not really moved far and beyond the areas that we're watching out for. And you can see a similar situation with the rest of the euro pairs. So this one did push to the downside of this area right here. This was during the London session, just like we've seen with the rest of the euro pairs. The market came down, broke to the downside, attempted to hold within here. But unfortunately, it's like the price just couldn't end up pushing any further. You can see there was some sort of a probe there. And once the market came back in, you can see some sort of a buyer's region within there. During the US session, the market did push itself up to the upside. So moving into today, you can see that there's some sort of a range that the market has formed within this region right here. Of course, the best thing to do and the best practice is to always make sure that you're getting your sales at the top of the range. That's where we are. But also don't jump in on blind sales. Just because we're at the top of the range doesn't mean that you should just sell. You should wait and see if you can get a slowdown of these buyers. Maybe wait for some confirmation of the big sellers coming in. Because if they're not interested with this price right here, and even if you do end up picking the selling opportunities, even if you're within some sort of a seller's region, that wouldn't work out very well for you. So just wait and see. Maybe you could find the market maybe doing some sort of a probe. Maybe these buyers are attempting to break this area to the upside. If that ends up being unsuccessful and the sellers do push them back in and the market holds within here, then you could potentially find that the market could potentially end up giving some really good sells. Maybe something similar to this, just on the inverse, where the market breaks to the upside, comes back in. At that point in time, if you look for your sells, you will be good to go. Definitely manage your trade at the bottom of the range, somewhere within there, but also watch out for this region right here. Hopefully, we do get the sellers coming in quite aggressively. Then maybe we could find the market coming back in all the way till within there. So make sure that you do watch out for that. So last but not least, on the euro pairs, we do have the euro against the US dollar. So this is a new entrant on our watch list. So for this one, we will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So do watch out for those three regions right there. So aggressive all the way at the top within here. Can't see that the sellers did react off that area quite aggressively on Friday. Let's see if the buyers can come back in, be able to push the market all the way to within there. Let's see what reaction we get off the sellers within there. If we do get some sort of a slowdown of the buyers and the sellers really coming in, maybe you could find a repeat of what happened on Friday. You could find the market coming back down all the way from within that area till within down within this region right here. But you also need to manage within this area. You can see that the market has been in some sort of a range within this area. So I mean, the next scenario that you will be facing on your way down, in as much as you could target down here, will definitely be somewhere within this region right here, because you could find that the market could easily bounce off this area right here on its way down. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. You could get a hold within there, but if the sellers do end up being adamant, then you could definitely find the market coming back in within there. But instead of taking chances, when it comes to trading, don't really take too many chances, and don't trade as if you're trying to prove a point with the markets. Trade what you can see. If the markets do give you some profits, make sure that you do take those profits. That's the reason why you're here. You're here to make money. You're not here to prove a point. So I hope that's clear for guys. Remember the red scenario at the top. If the market breaks above that region to the upside, then unfortunately for us, at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So that's pretty much it in terms of the euro pairs. So right now we're going to move on into the Swiss franc pairs, mix and match those up with everything on the buy side, just like we've done with the yen pairs and the euro pairs. So the first one on the CHF pair is the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So this is also a currency pair that we did have on Friday. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out: aggressive, conservative, semi-aggressive, conservative here. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. And you can't see, I did point out it wasn't really a good area to look for your buying opportunities. The market did come down, just came shy of that area, but you can see that it tapped that region, came back to the upside. Then during the US session, you can see that the market really struggled within this region right here. The buyers did break above that area, pulled back in. But you can see that the move going up was extremely choppy to the upside. So for this one, for today, of course, not really the clearest of buying opportunities on Friday. Let's see if we can get something clear today. So do watch out for these three regions right here. So we do have the aggressive down within this area right here, conservative at the top, semi-aggressive conservative within this region, but don't look for your buying opportunities right now. You could find that the market could react off this area right here quite aggressively to the downside. Something similar to what happened on Friday. So just be a bit patient, wait and see what happens. Either if the market breaks above this area to the upside, maybe something similar to this, and you get a breach and a nice hold to the upside, you could look for your buying opportunities within that area. But if that doesn't happen, watch out for the pullbacks. You could find the pullback coming back in within this region. Or maybe if this price is not good enough, then you could find the price coming back in all the way to within this area right here. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Also make sure that you watch out for the times that we do keep on pointing out. Could find some good moves happening, either at 10, 3, or 4:30. So the next Swiss franc pair is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, also a currency pair that we did have on Friday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. So you can see at around 9, 10, price was so close within some sort of a seller's region. It's not a surprise that they did actually react off that area. You can see that the market came back in somewhere close as possible within this area. Seems like there was some sort of an SNR somewhere within this area. And off that area, you can see that the buyers did push themselves to the upside quite aggressively. The market broke above there. You can see that there were quite a number of holds within here. I mean, if you did end up looking for the buys at this point in time, or maybe during the US session, because you can see that during the New York Stock Exchange Open, price did literally push itself off this region to the upside. And this is exactly what we talk about when we always end up saying, wait for the market to break a level and wait for the hold and the pullback to come back in within a particular region. Don't become some sort of a breakout trader Because if you do, in as much as sometimes you will get some good trading opportunities, but most of the time you'll possibly get stopped out. It's not really necessary to do such type of trading. Just be a bit patient. That's all it takes. So moving into today, those are the three areas we will be watching out for. So hopefully you can take note of them. Right now, at least somewhere within some sort of a buyer's region. We just need to see the big buyers coming in. If you end up looking at how the buyers are coming up right now, these are definitely not the big buyers. You know, if you look at how the sellers pushed the market in within this region and how the buyers are retaliating, this is not really quite them. So what we will be waiting to see is if we can get maybe the market potentially, maybe we need some sort of another spike coming down, maybe for the buyers to really get excited. If we see something aggressive such as that, maybe these sellers who came down within this region might need to attempt to break their previous record, which is somewhere within this region right here. If that happens and we get the buyers showing up more aggressively than they are within this move right here, then ideally we get the pullback coming in. I think that buy right there will possibly be a winner for you. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember, if the buyers really have nothing to say about this region right here, then it means that they need a much better price. So that means that you could find the market coming back in all the way to that region at the bottom right there. And you could find that the proper buying opportunities could happen then, maybe during the US session. You could find that during the London session, the market might literally be on the pullback phase. You could find that maybe at around 4:30, that's when price will be back within here. And you could find some really good buying opportunity somewhere within that area there. So just make sure that you watch out for that. And no matter what you do, always do make sure that you do trade with a stop loss. That's one thing that we always remind guys, because trading with a stop loss is also part of responsible trading. So make sure that you always do trade with a stop loss and stick within your risk parameters. So moving on into the next Swiss franc pair. This is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, also a currency pair that we did have on Friday, watching out to see whether we could get buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here, just coming in close within this area. I wanted to see the market potentially break above this region or maybe come back in within this region, which it did. And you can see that the sellers reacted off this area. And this was during the London market open at exactly 10. Consider the price came back in within here, did some sort of a probe, and consider this one was a proper one where it tapped this area, came back in, held within there. We did attempt your buying opportunities within here. You can see that that buy did quite literally end up working out really well. So moving into today, we're still going to be keeping our eyes on the buy. This one is clear cut in terms of the market making some sort of a range. So definitely you want to get your buying opportunities as close as possible within there. And of course, when the market comes back in, within this region at the top, then you definitely want to be managing your trade at the top of the range right there. But also remember that there's also a region right at the bottom right here that we're also going to be focusing on. In case we get the market coming back in within that area, let's say, for example, this area right here is not good enough for the buyers, then ideally, if they do need a much better price, then we'll definitely be watching out for the region at the bottom, somewhere within this area. But remember, if the market breaks beneath that region and holds below it to the downside, then unfortunately, at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So moving on into the next one, this is the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. So this is also a currency pair that we did have on Friday. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten buying opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we were looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. The buyers did seem like they showed up. And I think for the guys who did show up on Friday, I did point out that we were waiting to see what sort of a pullback would have gotten back in within this region. And you can see that the pullback came in quite aggressively. And that's the reason why, just going back to the point that I talked about in terms of always waiting to see the type of pullback, and being patient is very important, because if you're not patient enough to wait and see what the sellers were going to do off this region right here, and maybe you did have a buying or a buy limit somewhere within there with stops here, it would have just resulted into some sort of a loss. And you can see that the sellers came in aggressively, tapped back within this region. After that, you can see that there was a massive probe within this area. The market came back in, price pulled back in within here. And during the US session, you can see that that's when the market went to the upside after literally doing two probes within here. Sometimes it can be frustrating especially being caught out and the market goes in your favor. Let's say even if you did attempt buys here and maybe you were caught out by these spikes before the market went to the upside, you knew that the market was going to go up, but you got stopped out before the market went to the upside. Can be a bit painful, but those are things that happen. I mean, even for us guys, we get caught up in such kind of situations. Sometimes you're unlucky, you analyze to the best of your ability, but when the opportunity does end up showing up, it leaves without you. It can be quite frustrating, but it's part of trading. Always make sure that you also don't fight with the markets, getting into some sort of revenge trading. If you end up doing that, then you're really going to be in for it. So make sure that you always take accept it for what it is. There's always going to be another trade and you can always try it out. So for this one for today, the levels are the same. Don't look for buying opportunities right now. Let's wait and see what happens. You can see that the market is in some sort of a range that's starting to form within here. You don't really want to be getting your buying opportunities high up there. Wait and see if you could get the price either coming back in within this region or maybe somewhere within this area right here. It's possible that the sellers could react off this area. You could find price back in within here or somewhere within here. If that doesn't happen, then just wait and see if you could get the market breaking above this region to the upside. If we do get a hold, then we could potentially try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities, especially if the market breaks to the upside and you find maybe even some attempts of the market trying to break to the downside. So let's say the market breaks above there, then we get the market coming back in, and there are even attempts that you can visually see. Remember, I talked about always trade what you can see. If you see that the market does attempt to break to the downside and can't do that, those attempts are good because it shows you that the buyers are still in control. So something almost similar to this, but maybe somewhere within this region right here, then that should give you more confidence in terms of jumping in on your buying opportunities. So do watch out for that. Do watch out for the times. And of course, no matter what you do, always make sure that you do trade with a stop loss. So last but not least, for the Swiss franc pairs, we do have the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So this one is a new entrant on our watch list today. So we'll be trying to see whether we can get buying opportunities. Do watch out for these three areas right here. So the region at the top, can see that the market has reacted off here a number of times, reacted off there quite aggressively. This was at midnight. You can see that right now the market is coming in a bit slower within this area, which is good. So you can visually see the first time when the sellers came down, they came down aggressively. This time around, they've really slowed down, which is good. And ideally, we end up seeing the market coming back in like it is as close as possible within this region right here. And we do see the aggression of the buyers. Then ideally, this should be a good buy coming back in within this region right here. So watch out for that. Also watch out for this region at the bottom right here. In case this price is not good enough, then we'll be waiting to see what happens, maybe somewhere within this area right here. So I think that's pretty much it in terms of all the currency pairs. So we've mixed and matched, everything or the currency pairs on the sell side with the ones on the buy side. So right now we're going to move on to the indices and commodities. So we'll start off by looking at the NAS 100. So for this one on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So aggressive, of course, at the top right there, conservative down here, and also this region right here, somewhere in the middle where we're trying to see whether we could get the pullback coming in for us to look for the sells. It seems like the market just came in shy off that area. You can see that it turned off aggressively within this area, just came shy off it. Came down, quite some sort of a fight that was going on within here. Sometimes the market was above this area, sometimes below. A bit of a choppy mess that was going on within this area, but it also seems like maybe the market could be establishing itself into some sort of a downward channel, some sort of a downward range. It's a bit messy within this region right here, but trying to pick out the best areas for us to look for ourselves should be maybe somewhere within here. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in within this area. There's some sort of a true SNR within that area right there. And if we do get the price coming down, there are definitely quite a number of minor SNRs that are in between this area, because you can see that there's a choppy mess. Could be a level somewhere within this region right here, maybe somewhere within here. Just make sure that you're on the lookout. If you do see some sort of a struggle, it's always a good idea for you to literally manage your trades. So watch out for that. But right now, since the market is coming back in, let's see if we could get the market coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this region right here. If this price is not good enough, and the sellers do need a much better price or more of a discount, then we'll be trying to see whether we could get the price coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this region right here. So just make sure that you do watch out for that. Of course, there's a high probability and possibility that you could find especially the indices and the commodities moving a lot, especially during the US session, because of course they're pegged with the US dollar. But today, of course, just looking at the fundamentals real quick, there isn't really that much that's going to be happening during the US session. So you can see that also during the London session, just a couple of news events for the euro. Then after that, during the US session, you pretty much can see that there isn't really going to be that much. It doesn't mean that the charts are not going to move, but also be a bit more understanding. In case, let's say the markets don't really move that time, then understand that there's really nothing to really push the markets. So just watch out for that. Remember that if the market breaks above this region to the upside, then for this one, I guess we could potentially try and see whether we could look for buying opportunities. But remember, you do need to see. And, I'll keep on pointing out and reminding guys, it's very visual. You will need to see that the market does break and hold above. If you can't see that, then you could potentially find that maybe it could be an incitement where the market breaks above. So many people are going to start jumping in on the buying opportunities only for the market to come down and come down very hard. So just make sure that you really do watch out for that and make sure that you do end up being patient. So moving on into the next one, which is the US 30, the Dow Jones. So for this one, we're trying to see whether we could get buying opportunities. So you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And on Friday, when we're looking at the charts at a time like now, price was somewhere within here. So at around 9, 10, price was somewhere there. Not really a good time to look for your buying opportunities. We did want to see the price come back in within here. And you can see that the market tapped back in within here quite a number of times during the London session and also during the US session. And you can see that the market did push itself to the upside quite well, especially during the US session. So for this one for today, we're still going to be watching out for the same regions. You can see that the market is in some sort of a range. So the top is somewhere within that area right there. The bottom and where we ideally should be looking for our buying opportunities will be somewhere as close as possible within this region right here. And for as long as we're holding above this region right here, then definitely we should be looking to see whether we can get buying opportunities. So do watch out for that. Also, if we get the market breaking above this region to the upside, hopefully if the market breaks above this range strong and we do get a breach of structure, then we could try and see whether on the pullbacks we could get some buying opportunities within this area. Maybe something similar to this. So just make sure that if you get a replica of this somewhere within this area, then definitely you could try and see whether you could get your buying opportunities. Remember that the markets always repeat themselves, and it's always good to learn the things that the markets do, especially when it breaks, pulled back within levels. You can really end up mastering that, or whatever trading plan that you do end up following. Just make sure that you do master it, because the charts do repeat themselves time and time again. Unfortunately, very many people don't end up learning. So you find that the same way you were stopped out yesterday is the same way you're going to get stopped out today. It's the same way you were stopped out last week. You're just not learning, and the markets are constantly repeating themselves. You're constantly getting trading opportunities within areas where you're not supposed to be getting those trades, and you're always getting stopped out the same way. And it gets frustrating, and you can't really blame the markets, because the markets are just doing what they do. It's up to you to really end up figuring out where is it that you're going wrong and why is it that you keep clashing with the markets. So just make sure that you really do go through. And that's the reason why post analysis is key. You will definitely end up realizing certain patterns according to how the markets do end up moving. And also maybe you will realize things about yourself in terms of there's something that you're definitely doing time and time again that keeps putting you, on opposite ends with the market. But for the guys who are professional and are profitable, they definitely know their trading edges. They know what they need to do. They know that the markets repeat themselves in a certain way. And they know that if they act in a particular manner, that will definitely keep them winning, and their trading edge will always be up. So just make sure that you really do focus on also looking back at your trades. Don't just say that it was a loss, forget about it, on to the next one. You're going to get stopped out the same way time and time again. So make sure that you're really learning and you're always keeping an open mind. So moving on into silver. Now for silver, on Friday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buys But remember that it was conditional based on the fact that if we're holding above this region to the upside, then the buys were valid. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. I did point out that we didn't need to see the buyers really coming in within here aggressively. And if we did end up getting a hold, within this region, then we could have potentially tried to see whether we could get some buying opportunities. But you can see that the sellers were really coming in aggressively. Starting off that morning during the Asian session, the buyers really had nothing to say. Sellers came down again. Buyers had nothing to say about it. And you can see that the sellers really broke this region to the downside quite aggressively. And I think also the US news events that came out on Friday, which brought in a lot of strength for the USD, that's also visible, especially on silver and also on gold, like we will see in a bit. So you can see that the markets came down, broke this year to the downside, and today we're officially going to be looking for selling opportunities. But remember, it's also conditional. When it comes to silver, gold, and also the indices, in as much as the fundamentals do affect what's happening, but we always do keep a bigger mind or a bigger eye on what's happening with the technicals. So for as long as we're holding beneath this region right here, then ideally we should be ideally looking for those selling opportunities. If the market breaks above here to the upside, then we could potentially try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities, but we do need to see the breach and the hold to the upside. So for this one, these are the three areas we will be watching out for. Let's see if we can get the price coming back in somewhere as close as possible within this region right here. If we do get that, then we could try and see whether we could get sales. Watch out for the region at the bottom. Remember that you don't really want to be chasing your sales, especially when the price is coming back in within this region or looking for sales now. Those type of trades are not really going to give you the best risk to rewards. So you definitely want to get the trades as close as possible within the seller's region. Try and keep your stop losses as low as you can, but also making sure that you're also not tightening your stop losses too much. Because if you do that, then you're also going to get stopped out. You run the risk of being stopped out before the market moves in your favor. So watch out for that. And of course, coming down, ideally, you should get some good risk to reward. If the buyers don't end up showing up and let's say the market comes down, wait and see if you could get the market breaking beneath this region and holding below it to the downside. If that happens, then you could definitely jump in on your selling opportunities at that point in time. Once you get the hold to the downside, maybe some attempts to go above this region to the upside that end up being unsuccessful and the market continues to hold beneath it, then you could look for your selling opportunities. Just make sure that you watch out for areas lower where you could run into issues with the opposite party. So last but not least, we do have gold. Now for gold, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten buys, but remember that it was conditional based on the fact that if price was, for as long as price was holding above this region to the upside, we're trying to see whether we could get buys. And you can see that in the morning at around 9:10, I did point out that this wasn't a good area to look for your buying opportunities. We did need to wait and see whether we could get the market coming back in within here. And you can see that there was a fight that was really going on between the buyers and the sellers within this region right here. So you can't see the sellers did push the market down. The buyers showed up, but they still couldn't break above that region. And you can see that at 3 during the US session open, of course, even including the news events that I did end up talking about, you can see that the sellers did really push off that region quite aggressively. Unfortunately, there was nothing to tell us to look for buying opportunities there. You can see that the market quite literally sliced through these areas like, a hot knife through butter. And there was nothing the buyers could have done about it. And you can see that the market broke this area to the downside. And moving into today, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. But also remember, like I pointed out, for the indices, commodities, these ones were more technical, in as much as the fundamentals can come in play, but we're more technical on them. So for as long as we're holding beneath this region to the downside, then ideally we should be looking for those selling opportunities. You still can end up looking for buys. All you just need to have at the back of your mind is that the buys that you're looking for are counters. So don't be so excited and overconfident and overambitious about those trades. You could find that the sellers could come in at any given point in time and the market could continue resuming to the downside. So just make sure that you're aware of it. It's not that you can't look for those buys. Like we always point out, it's like if you're driving on the wrong side of the road and you don't know that you're driving on the wrong side of the road, then there's a problem somewhere. But ideally for this one, if you do know the ideal direction and you know which place you're supposed to be, then ideally that's a good thing for you. So have that at the back of your mind. If you're going to be looking for buying opportunities, then just know that the opposite party could easily come in at any given point in time without any warning. You could find that the market doesn't even literally have to come back in within this aggressive or more or less the major areas that we have. You could find that even minor areas could quite literally end up turning the market. So just have that at the back of your mind. So for this one, watch out for those three areas right there. You can see that the market has tapped in within this region, but also don't chase the sells. There's a minor SNR somewhere within this region right here. And you could find that maybe off this area, the market could quite literally bounce to the upside. Try and get the sells as close as possible within here. And you can also see that the big sellers, this is not quite them. So you could find that maybe the buyers might need to push the market back in within this region again before the big sellers do show up. But also remember, like I pointed out, the indices and commodities have a high probability of moving a lot, especially during the US session, because of course they are pegged with the US dollar. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything that we do have for today. The currency pairs and the indices and commodities. So for the guys who came in a bit late, feel free to take a screenshot of that. So looking at the Q&A real quick. So I see Purity Morioki there saying, hello, John. Please repeat Euro NZD. Thanks. Euro NZD. So for this one, ideally, we're trying to see whether we could get some selling opportunities. The levels are more or less the same, like what we did have on Friday. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. Let's see what happens. I had pointed out that the market has come back in within, some area where there's some aggressive sellers who push the market down aggressively on Friday. So let's see what happens within here. But of course, we do want to see, hopefully they can push the market beneath this region to the downside and the market really struggles coming back up within there. We do look for your selling opportunities at that point in time. You will be good because you don't really want to be hitting yourselves when the price is holding above this red SNR right here, because you could easily find that the market could pull back and you hit yourself there and you could easily end up getting stopped out and the market reacts off that area aggressively. So just watch out for that. And of course, the red SNR at the top, definitely an area where we can also end up trying to see whether we can get selling opportunities if the market gets there. But also the buyers do need to slow down and the sellers need to come in aggressively at that point in time. So I hope that is clear for you, Purity. So I'm not seeing any more questions, which is perfectly fine. So I guess everything is clear, but of course, like I pointed out, I know since these things are on the socials now, guys can really watch and rewatch these things, as many times as possible. And of course, it's something that can be beneficial to you guys. Even watching and rewatching these things, there are certain things and pointers that we constantly give during the sessions, and there are certain things that we do keep on repeating. So if you're new to these sessions, make sure that you also do, possibly try and rewatch these sessions. There are certain things that we keep repeating time and time again, and the more you get accustomed to them, I think the better your trading is going to become. And the good thing about it is also watching and rewatching these things, especially on the socials. You can even speed them up faster so that you can watch them real quick, figure out exactly what we're talking about. How do we analyze the charts and go about it? Because we're doing it exactly the same way each and every day, and we're repeating certain things. So if you get accustomed to that, then ideally your trading will definitely become much, much better. So as I bring it to a close, remember the masterclass deal is ending this Friday. So make sure that you do jump in on it. We do have about 4 days before the offer runs out. It's currently going for around 7,000. They're about $55. So there's another course that's coming in that we're just trying to put some final touches on that's going to be closely linked to the masterclass. The one-on-one is still there. Some guys were asking about the one-on-one. The one-on-one is still there, but ideally what we're trying to bring in is something that is going to bridge between the masterclass and also the one-on-one. So for the guys who've done the one-on-one, you don't really need to come in for the program that we're bringing in. Ideally, for the one-on-one guys, we're also planning something even much better for those guys at that level. But this one is more just trying to bring in a course between the masterclass and the one-on-one. Put a couple of guys together via Zoom from all over the place. We look at the charts each and every day for a couple of hours, maybe 1.5, 2 hours during the London Open. We see what opportunities are there. You try and pick our brains in terms of how we go about it, in terms of approaching the charts. And the reason why we're saying that we need guys to do the master classes so that when we're starting off this course, of course, we're with a couple of guys, just about 4 or 5 guys. We want to make sure that we're more or less at the same level. We don't want someone, when we're busy trying to take a trade, someone is asking, what's a pip? You know, we need to all make sure that we're more or less at the same level. And that's the reason why we're saying that if you've done a master class, at least you will be eligible to end up coming in for that class. Or when we're looking for a trade, someone is asking how to put a stop loss. You see, now there, you'll end up taking us back. So just make sure that you do jump in on it. The offer runs until Friday, so you do have about 4 days and hours. Then you can see that the time is ticking, but also feel free to get in touch with us in case anything is not clear. I'm sure most of you guys do have our contact details. If you don't, maybe Mitch can also put them on the chat box, but also you can find them on our website. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow during the daily analysis session, 9 a.m. in the morning. So with that, happy trading, guys, and bye for now. May the pips be with you. God bless.